Kadwayaba, 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 Luka koka mwa Kadwayaba, Luka koka mwa Kadwayaba, 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 Kadwayaba. Usu campio, wae. Usu campio, wae. Amimio, agegeo, anyanyao. Amimio, agegeo, anyanyao. Me kasidodia, kanyanya, katigudugui, kamimi, men kasidodia, kanyanya, katigudugui, kamimi. Bango ya boye, aguya yeseno, bango ya boye,
Bango ya boye,
bango ya boye, ye, aguya yeseno, bango ya boye,
bango ya boye,
aguya ye, aguya ye, aguya ye.
All right, welcome to the show. Welcome to Talk TV Media Network. Politics recap. Weekly politics here at Talk TV Media Network. Welcome to the show. This is the day. This is the time when we talk about politics, happenings in Liberia, around the world. What a week it has been in Liberia when it comes to politics. And today we'll be looking at a lot of legal issues when it comes to Liberia, the NEC, the Chief Justice selection, all of that we will be discussing tonight. Those of you watching from Liberia, we are asking you to share the link, be a part of the show. We highly appreciate it. Again, my name is Sam Gadu, and my co-host, Joa Bimba. Joa, welcome to the show, man. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful and happy to see you again. I hope you're doing much strong now. And happy to see you. And hello to everybody in whether it's in Liberia, whether it's in Europe, whether it's in America, wherever you are. I want to say hello to you.
Yeah. How's your family, man? How's everybody's doing?
We're doing wonderful. Trying to enjoy the last days of the of the summer. Then we'll go back into our into our basket game as usual.
I know. Tell me about it. Same thing over here, a bunch of boys and stuff, kids, it's not easy. Yeah, happy to have them back in school. Finally, schools are up, opening in students. And I think the same thing is about to happen in Liberia too. Schools will be reopening next month, I think.
Yes.
Their school calendar is almost similar to that of the US.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting.
Yes.
Because I remember the days that when we were growing up, going to school, school closes at the end of the year, somewhere around November, December, and we're looking forward for the Christmas, all of that. But the Liberian school system has completely changed. They completely changed everything around, almost similar to that of the US. But yeah, politics, man, politics. Weekly recap of politics happenings in Liberia, around the world, and what's trending from your end. What's trending from your end before we even begin to what's going on?
I haven't followed a lot of the global politics as yet, but I know that basically I've been looking at the American economy. I think they have enjoyed growth. People were predicting recession, but there's disagreements among the economists. There's no recession, and the job growth indicator, which is one of the signs that there's no recession, has been very great. So
Right.
I think Biden is going to have The election will be tough, but I think he's going to get a shot at the election this time around again. That's my prediction, based on all of these factors.
All right, talking about that before we get into the Liberian politics, right? The passing of the student forgiveness loan, all of that stuff that just took place. Some Democrats and some Republicans are against that stuff. Majority, are Democrats, because the thing is, what happened with the other people? Because not everyone. Somebody saying that he's fueling with the passage of that student loan forgiveness. He's fueling into people who are getting student loans, not being able to pay. Government is going to pay for you. What becomes of that in the future? I mean, 10,000, 20,000 forgiveness, Pell Grants, all of that stuff. You know, don't you think there's some sort of wisdom in that?
I think it's essentially a situation, but you have to look at it, I don't think that automatically means that it gives people the incentive to mean that you take the student loan, the government is going to pay for it. But I think there's a criteria set up as to who is going to benefit. So that criteria is in place as to who is going to benefit, and I think it's going to affect a lot of Americans, a lot of the citizens.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they deserve it. Now, there's another argument to that too, that corporate entities get tax waivers. There are corporations that get tax waivers when the economy is very bad. They get some exemptions and here and there. Now, if these big corporations, multi-billion-dollar corporations, can get those break, how much more poor students who may not be having the kind of income to really pay off all of these loans? So why not give them a little break as well? That would be the
Right.
argument that somebody else would be making. So take for example a doctor who is providing healthcare and maybe have a heavy student loan, but
Mm-hmm.
he's contributing to the society. Or maybe a lawyer who may have heavy student loan, but it's also is working in public interest and is providing some help to the society. So
Right.
I think it's still a benefit. I know it's a political issue. The Republicans always like to present themselves as conservative when it comes to spending, but I think on the overall, those who are going to be benefited will be American citizens, and I think the fact that they are benefiting, I think nobody should have a problem with that.
Okay, so that take us from America back to Liberia. Um, Sanctions, 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 and that has to do with the sanctions that were levied on three um, Liberian government officials a couple of weeks ago. And in it tracks, from what we're hearing, there are more sanctions on the way for other government officials. What's your overall view about that?
I think the sanctions,
And
a lot of us expected the
the
sanctions.
impact too on the Liberian community. And
Yeah, a lot of us expected the sanctions. It was predictable. I will use the word foreseeable. All right, because I think the government herself, the way she presented herself, a lot of the scandals. We've listened to a lot of scandals. I remember listening to a guy on Spoon FM who
Mhm.
worked with the Free Port of Liberia, and this guy was narrating how money was being stolen. And this guy is a very he was an official of government when he was making that statement.
Right.
And I remember that time, and he provides very much detail. I expected that the government of Liberia would have taken action. The government of Liberia did not take action. The issue of McGill has been around. A lot of people have been complaining about McGill, the way he has presented himself in the public. Although I read his position that he denied,
Right.
but
He did
he
deny.
said he's raising money for school fees and here and there. But the question is, who are those giving you raising the money from? Now we all know in the Liberian economy, the only people that get the best jobs in Liberia, in majority, are those that are in government.
Right.
Now, if you are a minister of state and for presidential affairs, and you are generating this money to be able to help people pay school fees, it technically means you are taking it from ministers and assistant minister or deputy minister somewhere. Now, we all know in Liberia that the Minister of State for Presidential Affairs
Mhm.
plays a major role when it comes to appointment and dismissal of officials of government. So if you're telling me that these guys were giving you money, you're raising money to do school fees, then there's a problem there. Because if I'm a deputy minister, or and you are a minister of state and you are asking me for money, technically I could be not performing my job and you could cover me up.
Right,
So
right.
it's like a pay for play. Yeah, it's a pay for play thing. So I say, okay, oh, that's my boss man. Yeah, I'll give you $2,000. But the expectation is that you'll be protecting my job just in case there's a problem, you
Mhm.
know. So and we all know that President he doesn't really have much of the background to understand what it means to even recruit the best of cabinet, whatever. And we all know, everybody know in Liberia, McGill is the one cutting the shots. So if McGill
Right.
is telling us,
Miguel has been calling the shots.
yeah,
Miguel and Samuel Toy.
and Samuel Tue. So it's a well-known general, well-known fact in Liberia. Now, another important issue about the sanctions there was the issue of his involvement in procurement processes. Now we have the PCC. Now, if you realize the PCC, since the Weah regime came to power, we
Right.
hardly even see advertisement around about bid. So business people can be able to bid and be able to have access to be able to do business and make money. And that agency was established to be able to allow Liberians to compete for projects. So in the sanction there clearly outlined that there have been some conflict of interest and involvement with procurement processes here and there.
Mhm.
Now, when you get involved with procurement processes, what it does is it stagnates the economy. The economy cannot grow when businesses are not really getting contracts to make money, you know. So I think the sanctions are necessary. Now, I really don't think the sanctions will have any impact on the Liberian economy as a whole, because these sanctions are targeted sanctions, and that is why the how to call him, the ambassador was very clear that these are targeted sanctions. These are sanctions not against the Liberian government. These are sanctions that are targeted against officials that we believe are involved in corruption. He was very clear with that over and over. So
Right.
I just think that people are trying to make it like a national issue, but it's not a national issue. And I think people need to look beyond that, because number one, McGill is not the only man that can serve as minister or serve presidential affairs in Liberia. There are other competent Liberians. Freeport is not, in fact, when we're looking at competent Liberians and looking at real competent resumes, there are so many other Liberians that can fill that position. So I
Right.
don't want people to make it like, okay, the fact that these three guys are sanctions, it means that the whole country is down. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. And I think the US sanctions are intended, it's a notice to our government that, hey, you guys need to change your operations around. I just think it's a notice. Say, hey guys, you need to change your operations around.
Well, don't
And
you?
one important point, like I told
Yeah.
somebody last time, if President Weah was proactive, there will be no sanctions.
And that is where I was bringing my question to you,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. There
Don't
will be
you
no
think
sanctions.
that if we had the checks and balances or firmly in place, and there is some sort of accountability, as in, okay, you're a government official, we know how much the government is paying you. The public knows because your income is public, and then if you've been paid $20,000 and we see you are building 50, 70, or $100,000 homes around town, that is a recipe for questioning you, how you're coming up with that kind of income, right? But that is nothing, that is not in place. So how can you even know what is happening?
Yeah, and that's an important point you are raising there. Number one, the salaries are not public. They don't want to publish their income, but we know, according to reports, that senior ministers make around $7,000 US per month. That's what they make. Nobody has exceeded that level, and so that's what we know. And then maybe your other allowances. So those are things that need to be public information, but it's not really public as it should be. You see, and
Right.
so we see you you going around, you make comments on the news, like the most recent comment that he might give me. That was not a healthy comment that you make as an official government. Now, all of the comments, if you put it together, it raises a question. And then you also have the Solicitor General.
Hmm.
You also involved in different scheme as prosecutor,
Yeah.
doing a lot of other stuff. Yeah,
Big time.
yeah, those are other things. So I think that the sanctions are targeted sanctions, and I don't think it should have a bigger impact on the Liberian economy. If it should have an impact, it means that either the Liberian government refused to adhere to the sanctions, and the U.S. government now will have to take other measures that may likely have an impact, a greater impact.
So coming to Sereno Cephas, one of those who the sanctions are impacting. Um, what do you make up? Because for you, from your legal mindset, I want to know, what do you make up of once the sanctions are on him and he's been suspended by the president, Dr. George Weah? What becomes of the cases that he's supposed to decide on or handle or bring to the court? What becomes of those?
So it is an important question, all right? So one thing we need to understand here is the sanctions, when the sanctions are executed, it is up to the government, the president, to either file these guys or not to file them.
Right?
The decision is not with the US government. The US government is not going to force the president and say, oh, fire them. But the president had to ask himself a few questions. One, what benefit am I getting from the US for my policies? How is the US government helping my policies?
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, Cephas is the man who is the Solicitor General for Liberia. Are there programs from the US government that are supporting rule of law? Is the US government giving any donation to the Liberian National Police? Is it a significant donation? How important that is for my government? Those are questions that we need to be answering. The president to be answering, and other officials to be answering. Because you have to look at, it's a cost benefit analysis. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, see first, they may decide not to move him. So you can keep him there. But there are consequences if you decide to keep him, which means any financial and any other financial donation, technical support the U.S. giving to the Ministry of Justice or rule of law programs in Liberia
Right?
may likely be impacted. That's what it means. So the question will be, do you prefer impacting hundreds or thousands of Liberian lives just to maintain an official? That's a question that the president need to answer.
That's a good one.
Do you want to maintain this man and you lose hundreds of millions of dollars that should be able to help the justice system? That's a judgment that the president has to make.
Right?
Can you appoint another person to serve as Solicitor General? According to the reports, CFOS is being investigated by the Liberian National Bar Association, and I think they want to suspend he and Vanny Sherman. I'm waiting to see how strong they are going to be, because the Liberian National Bar Association sometimes is compromised. But the information I'm getting is that they are doing investigations and they are planning to see how they can be able to suspend Cephas and vanish him. And so Cephas, for him, if they suspend him, that means he cannot do no practice of law again. He's out of the practice of law. That's
Oh
it.
wow.
If they
Isn't
suspend
that
him,
serious?
yeah, he suspend him or expel him, that means he no longer can practice law in Liberia. Anywhere he can practice law again. That would just be it for him. That just be a done game for him. He can find something else to do, but not practice law, because these sanctions go to the character fitness. Now, another important point I want to clarify, because I've been hearing people say that they need to give the guy due process.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the president do not need to give them due process to fire them. You don't need due process to fire them. All right. Now, the only new due process, for example, in Liberia, under our laws in Liberia, you cannot seize somebody's property without the court involvement. So, for example, if McGill get a bank account in Liberia, if Tuawe get a bank account in Liberia, nobody can freeze those accounts in the absence of the court in Liberia giving an order. So that's where they need due process. All right,
So, so,
nobody can
so,
seize their, yeah.
so if Miguel, according to his denial, because there
Mhm,
was an alleged
mhm,
rumors that came up that he's banking internationally with a local bank in Ghana in the
mhm,
tune of 4 million, which he denied.
mhm.
Um, if he was banking in Liberia, where he has, it shows in his account as in 10 million, and he has to go through the due process of law,
Mhm.
with the government. Don't you
Mhm.
think the process of going through the time of going through the due process of law, he could easily move that money around?
Yes, this is what I'm saying. Under our law, only the court can stop you from getting your money. So it's our property. Under our constitution, nobody can seize your property from you without the court involvement, due process of law. So McGill, as far as under Liberian law,
Hmm.
he's still entitled to having access to his money. Now, even if McGill was a U.S. citizen, now it's an important point we need to clarify for people to understand. If McGee was a U.S. citizen, under American law, they would still be forced to go through due process of law to seize his property. The only reason why I don't know, according to him, he doesn't have a bank account in the U.S. Now, if you have a bank account in the U.S. and you are not a U.S. citizen or a legal permanent resident, then it becomes difficult for the courts here to give you due process. Because how can they give you due process because you're not here? You see, it become challenging because you are a foreigner. And another thing people need to understand is that this particular sanction falls under the foreign affairs power of the president of America.
And the,
So
co-
under the foreign affairs power of the president of America, that's where this particular law falls. The sanction falls. So in other words, it is a tool that the president of America can use if he have a policy issue with a government. He can use that particular tool to be able to discipline foreign governments around the world.
right, and it's called a Meninsky what?
Yeah,
Meninsky.
the Manisky Act. Are we there?
Yeah.
Now, yeah, then so like people like McGill is not a US citizen. He's not a legal permanent resident in America. Tuawe is also not. How you call him? Cephas is also not. So it's a little difficult thing to challenge in the US courts. There are two arguments. Number one, if it goes to court, the government lawyer in America can argue that the courts in America cannot hear the case because this action was taken under the foreign affairs power of the president of America. That could be the argument of the lawyer for the government of America. And,
Right.
and, and they could have a plausible argument because McGill, how you call him? McGill, Tuawe, and Cephas, they are not US citizens. You see? But officials of government that are in Liberia now, officials of government that are in Liberia, if they have a legal permanent resident card, if they have a U.S. citizenship,
Hmm.
most likely the U.S. government is not going to use this particular act against them. Most likely. The U.S. government is most likely to use what they call the FICPA. It's the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. Now, that other law is for U.S. citizens who commit crimes in other countries, corruption or bribery.
And permanent residents are not included.
Permanent resident are included. Legal permanent resident are included. You fall under that law. So if you are a legal permanent resident, if you are a U.S. citizen, you are in the Liberian government. Now, some people have been saying, oh, there are some names we expected to be on that list. They are now on that list. There are a few things that have been coming to my mind legally. Number one, either the U.S. government is looking at because if they put them under this particular sanction, anybody who's a U.S. citizen or a legal permanent resident in the U.S. there in Liberia, they can challenge it under the U.S. courts.
Right.
They can challenge it here. You see that point there? So either the guys look at it and say, hey, send McGill Tuawe and how to call him, and see if they are not U.S. citizens. Let use them as the hanging fruit. They are the hanging fruit first.
Right.
Now, for the other guys, there are two things they will do. Either they will wait for them right after they leave their jobs in Liberia and come to the U.S., then they will file an action against them. For them, they can be imprisoned in America. they could go to jail for 30 or 40 years. And they will be going to jail under the FRCPA. So if anybody is any official, whether it's Tue, whether it's Jowia himself, whether it is his wife, any of them that are there that have US passports,
Right.
right after they leave and they land in the US here, they may likely be able to be prosecuted under that particular act. So
Oh, that's
those are some of the legal implications there. So that there are two different laws, and the guys can use that interchangeably.
very interesting to know that.
Yeah, yeah. And the difference between the two law is that the other one fall under the foreign affairs power of how to call him, of the U.S. president, and the other one, it was legislated. Is not a foreign affairs power. It's something that falls under the domestic law of the U.S. So if you get a corporation in the U.S. and is running business in Liberia, is running business in how to call it, in any other country, if they bribe any official in Liberia and the U.S. government get any information about that bribery, they can be prosecuted under that particular act.
So it's almost like you're trying to remind me why the reason for Chucky Taylor being jailed in Florida,
Yes.
of him being a U.S. citizen, even though he's a Liberian as well.
Yes.
You know.
Yes. So those are some of the reasons why you are seeing this particular act. It's a little tricky.
It's tricky though.
Yeah, it's a little tricky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that brings us to folks watching us. This is Talk TV Media Network. We're bringing you a weekly recap here at Talk TV, happenings in Liberia and around the world. We are discussing legal issues as it pertains to the Liberian government and Liberian officials. So that takes us to the Temple of Justice. You know, the selection of the Chief Justice confirmation hearing. What's your take with what's happening? Because it almost looks like Judge Weah is having a lot of opportunity under this his administration to be able to elect people to the bench. You know.
Yes, that's so true. And this is why how you call it, in Liberia, when people are voting, we do not have voters that are very informed, that are very conscious about the issues. Liberian voters generally, and some of them may disagree with me, it's my opinion, are really not issue driven when it comes to voting. It's either about ethnicism, tribalism. It's either about somebody had given them maybe bag
of
rice, or somebody have built a hand pump in the community. So they don't understand the legal implications about all of those different things that have to. So that when you're electing a president, you have to think about all of those different issues because they will come. I think we saw the U.S. elections. We saw the battle between the Democrats and the Republican.
Correct.
And we see that although the Republican they didn't succeed in getting Donald Trump to have a second term, but they succeeded in making sure that Donald Trump were able to appoint justices that reflected their views, that reflected their views. Now, I do not have a problem with Judge Weah appointment. I listened to the hearings. I know there were some issues that were raised, but I think the Justice Yaw is competent. She's been on the bench for a while. Interestingly, she only have 3 years. All right, she's 67 years old at 2 months, according to her yesterday. So she only have 3 years to be Chief Justice of the Republic of Liberia. So Judge Weah, if Judge Weah is being re-elected, that means he's going to have a second chance of appointing another Chief Justice if he have a second term. So if I were a voter now in Liberia, I would be thinking about that power. I'll be analyzing Judge Weah, looking at him now, looking at the other power he's going to have now to appoint another Chief Justice. Those are the issues I will be analyzing now when I'm voting. Now, in Liberia, the voters don't understand that.
Joel, just to hold your thought right there, and you mentioned about it a little bit. This is very significant when it comes to election because people need to understand the power of these justices.
Yeah.
The decisions they make in a country that affect the very citizens that vote.
Yeah,
that,
it does.
That shift the dynamics in which the country moves.
Mm-hmm.
The power of the justices, it lies in their vote.
Yeah.
And so you are correct. You are quite correct that a lot of people are not educated to the point or enlightened as to the power of these people that sits on the bench, because and it affects the real estate industry, the economy. They make all these major decisions that comes to the Liberian people, the
Yeah,
society.
yeah,
You know, I just wanted to inject that.
yeah. The good thing about Liberia is we do not have real conservative versus liberal politics. We don't really have in Liberia. That's one good thing I would say. So we do not have the ideological, like in the U.S. The U.S. Supreme Court, like you have so many ideological battles. It's not really the case in Liberia.
Hmm.
I would still say to a greater extent, I would still consider Liberian justices to be conservative. That would be my argument. I don't really think there's this liberal versus conservative argument that we have. Like we have burning issues in the US, for example, abortion rights, gun rights, and whatever. In Liberian politics, in Liberian judicial system, I don't see us having the kind of touching issues. Are we there?
Hmm.
Now, if you look at the justice hearing, to be frank with you, she's just one person. So if you are the chief justice, you have one vote. It doesn't mean when you are chief justice, you override the power of the other justices. I think those are things that people need to understand, because I think for the ordinary person, people believe that when you are chief justice, it means that you have power to override the rest of the other people. No, that's not me. It's just a title you have, chief justice, and the only reason that chief justice that you have some administrative functions over
Right.
the court, assigning different things and other things there. That's what you have. So and then except for cases that are landmark cases, but for cases that are not landmark cases, I don't really have a worry much about that. And the reason why I do not have a worry much about that, because the law is clear about those issues. So, take for example, if you have a land case, all right. Let me take a practical example of a land case. If you have a
Right.
land case, you are two persons fighting on the land. Under our law, the pressing if two of you bought it from the right administrators. Now, let me make a very exception. So, let me give a practical example. So, I'm Joel Bimba, and you are Mr. Gadu. We bought our land from John Brown. Are we
Right.
there? So
Get it.
John Brown is our grantor. Are we there?
Hmm.
Now, but when John Brown sold it, he sold it to you, 1970. But then after he sold it to you and you were able to do all your document process, later on, his son who inherited the land did not know that he had already sold to you. His son decided to sell the land to Joel Bima in 2002. All
What
right.
what happens in that case?
Now, in that case, you and I, we are from the same grantors. We have the same grantors. Why we have the same grantors? Because that man inherited the property from his father who sold to you. So in that case, you have an older deed, and because you have an older deed,
That
you
prevails.
will prevail over me. You see that?
Right.
If that case go to the Supreme Court, no justice can say, okay, because I hate Mr. Gadu, I'm going to rule against Mr. Gadu. The justice cannot do that. And the reason why the justice cannot do that, because the law on that issue is well established. You see that? So when you hear the justice saying, there's a precedent, she can't go say, oh no, okay, Gadu is, Gadu, he wearing glasses. I don't like him. He from the other place. So therefore, I'm gonna rule it. You can't do that as a justice, because the law is what
You you
is
know,
clear
you
on
know, it's
that.
very interesting that you brought that issue up, that
Yeah,
landmark,
yeah,
when it
yeah,
comes to
yeah,
real estate area.
yeah. You see what I'm talking
But
about there?
that will lead me, so you can go back to the Chief Justice stuff, the land issue. That's
Yeah,
very intriguing for our listening audience, right?
yeah.
What if in that case, uh, it's the other way around, wherein the other person purchased separately from a different grantor,
Mhm.
and another person I purchased from a different grantor, and you purchased from a different grantor, but we
Yeah,
are loggerheads now.
yeah.
So to me, it still boils down to who has the owner's deed, right?
No, it doesn't bother to who are the others the. So if you purchase from two separate grantors, then here are the legal issues. Number one, is your grantor a legitimate owner of the
Mhm.
land. So that's the first issue the court had to establish.
Right.
If the court established that your grant, because there cannot be two grantors. There can never be two grantors of the land at the same time. All right. And when I'm
Mhm.
saying two grantors, what I mean is if you separate two separate grantors, that either the two grants are either related or they inherited from the same person. But if there are two different grantors, then we have to establish whether your grantor is a legitimate grantor. We have to establish that.
So that is when we come in. They call in the mother deed.
Yeah.
It's
So
called. To,
if your grantor is a legitimate grantor, and the other person is not a legitimate grantor, then there's no issue there. You take the land. There's no case.
and that has to do with bringing both of the grantors' deeds.
Yeah, and
in
checking
order
and
legal
checking. Yeah,
document
and knowing
for-
how
for-
they own the
for
land.
background checking who is there.
Yeah,
Right.
because in Liberia, anybody can be grantor. See
Yeah.
somebody land, my man that land on my land.
Do
Come,
you,
pay
do
money.
you realize that is causing a big issue in Liberia, land issue in
Oh
Liberia?
yeah, it's a big crisis. But you didn't realize that the justice was serving land issue at the confirm. I think somebody talked about it yesterday. That she had an issue with land, and I know she, according to what I learned, she intimidated a person by calling the person to a conference. Almost everyone in Liberia have had one, either a friend or somebody who is involved in the land crisis.
Yeah. And that is sad though.
Yeah.
Compared to here, it's so easy when the rules are working, when the system is working, it works better for everybody.
Yes.
But over there, it's almost like, okay, the one in government or the one who has the money is going to eventually triumph over the rightful owner.
Very well, because the thing is,
Yeah.
the court process is expensive, it's costly. I know of a friend of mine who they took her house from her. The husband, they purchased the land, built a beautiful house, and this person took the house from her after nearly 20 years living in the house for over 20 years. The husband died and left her and the children in the house before the person came and say that they own this land. But I'm very sure something wrong when something happened within the system. The court itself cannot be trusted. People change documents. The court issued about 510 letter administrations. Nobody checking. The judges are corrupt. So you have a crisis.
That's a serious crisis.
Yeah, that's a
Let's
crisis.
go to the NEC magistrates selection proposed law. Let me bring that on the screen, right? Because I know these discussions, they're very fascinating when you discuss having these legal issues. Time just goes like that, and I'm really enjoying it. The proposed law to remove the NEC magistrates. And just like you were talking, the importance of the judicial system, how everything kind of falls just right under it. Talk to us about this.
So the National Election Commission is an independent agency. It has what we call quasi-judicial powers. Now, when you hear an entity have a quasi-judicial power, what it means is that entity, it carries on judicial function, it carries on executive function, it also carries on legislative functions to some extent.
Mhm.
So that is why you see those entities when they develop them, the person who heard them will be giving a tenure, and they can only be removed for cause.
Right.
So, for example, the head of National Election Commission is not to just be removed arbitrarily by the president. There must be a cause. So, for example, the president can move the finance minister anytime he want to. He can move how they call it, the defense minister anyone he want to. But when it comes to National Election Commission, when it comes to the Independent Human Rights Commission, you can't do that. The reason because they are quasi-judicial institutions. Now, when the legislators set up an independent agency like you have NEC, what they have done is that we gave you some powers to make some rules to operate as an independent agency. That's what they are saying.
Right. As an
Because-
entity, very independent, unbiased.
Yes, exactly so. They have powers to write some rules and regulations that will govern the elections. The magistrates that you see over there, those magistrates, they function under the commissioners, the board of commissioners.
Right.
And those board of commissioners are tenured. Now, if you are saying you are developing a law 1 year before election that all of them will be removed, and then you yourself will go and decide how to recruit, that's problematic.
Very much so.
It's like you say, I get your power. No, boy, I want to steal someone. Hey, I want to hold it one. That's why they are doing there. It doesn't make any sense, a practical sense. Anybody who know about administrative agencies, like in the US, we have them. For example, the Civil Rights Commission. So in your state, you have a Civil Rights Commission. That's an independent agency.
Yeah.
It's like Oklahoma legislature saying, no, okay, we want you to do this, but your magistrates, the administrative law judges, we're passing a law, we'll move all of them. And then you can't do that. You can't be doing that at the same time. So it's actually problematic. And I want to tell and all Liberians do not support it. And those of you who are of my age group or who were born between the 70s coming up all the way during the wartime, we suffered the Civil War. Let me just tell you, it was because of places like the National Election Commission that we suffer. Our childhood, our young adult life, it was because of these very, very things that we went to war. I know some of you, sometimes you cheer it, you clap, and you want to be so excited following it, but you have to sit down and think deeper. Think about your children. I always tell people this. I say, why it is true that there can be no war now in Liberia, but our children that are coming up do not have a lot of this information and experience that we have. They don't have it. They don't have it.
Well, do I hold? Let me hold you right there. There is war in Liberia. It's just a different kind of war.
Yes.
It's a different kind of war that's in Liberia. It's not the war that, you and I would think about that Liberia went through for 14, 15 years of heinous crimes being committed, against humanity. But it's a different kind of war, crime of war. The war of poverty.
Yes.
It's all looming all over the place. Zogos. The law of the Zogos the war of the Zogos are all over the place. The judicial government judicial system is broken. You cannot find the balances of the three branches of government.
Mm-hmm.
That's war going on. War going on when the executive is the only one deciding, literally like running the justice, the department, running the legislature. There's war going on. And it's very, very significant for our listening audience to note that at the end of the day, the power belongs to you. Come 2023, you hold that key. You put those people in power. You give them the mantle to decide how to run the economy. You put them in charge to manage. They are just managers. These people are managers for us. So as managers, they are accountable to us. If you're running, it's simple. I run a business. If you're a manager, you are there to manage the affairs of the company. At the same time, you are accountable to your employees, to the smooth running of the company, all of that. You are accountable to the board of directors. That's how it is, running a country. The people decide, Mr. Weir, we trust you for 6 years. Here you are. Take the affairs. But manage, at the same time, be accountable to us. But then the mentality is so different that when they are elected, it's shift as though they got themselves there. And then they turn to suppress, and embezzle government, taxpayers' money, funds. So coming back to this proposed law of the magistrate, the NEC,
also,
go ahead.
Just to educate our public, the magistrates are like judges, all right, and they are to decide election disputes. Now, some of the senators that are now here or one trying to support this, I actually have some vested interest. They are not proposing this because they don't want to propose it. It doesn't make any sense, rational sense. All right, it's not like these magistrates have done anything wrong or whatever. But either somebody want to put in a magistrate so that when they have a contested dispute, that they'll be able to get their way through. So somebody want to manipulate the system, because the magistrates are the one that they are the first people that can judge these how to call it, these election disputes.
Right,
So
right.
yeah, they are very important. So if we are having a presidential elections coming, and you lawmakers are trying to move these guys, and then find another way to recruit them some kind of way, without no reason, then nobody had to tell you that's a problem. That's a problem. That's a serious problem.
You're
You
so
know,
right, though,
yeah,
about
that's a
that.
serious problem.
Wow. Folks, this is Talk TV Media Network. This is the time we bring you politics when it comes to weekly recap of happenings around Liberia, in your neck of the woods here in the U.S. We'll bring you global issues right here. Those of you who are following us today, share the link, be a subscribe, and be a part of this show. Today we are discussing national issues when it comes to NEC magistrates selection, the importance of that, and also discussing the importance of sanctions uh, levied on government officials, Liberian government officials, the impact the sanctions have on the Liberian government. We are discussing national issues that concerns you, because next year at about this time, Liberia will be on fire when it comes to election, right? 2023. You will have that right to exercise that right, that inalienable right. You will have that right, that constitutional right, by going to the ballot box and choosing the one that you want to pick to run the affairs of the state. But before doing that, our job is to be the voice for the voiceless, to give you that full understanding of what you should do, to give you, educate you, give you the awareness, the importance of going to, of voting. Very, very important. Joel, before we take a quick 1 minute break, right?
Hmm.
We saw this weekend, a few days ago, I think yesterday or day after, the return of the city mayor, Jefferson Koji, from here, from the U.S. back to Liberia. And we saw a lot of crowds, a lot of people, in the streets, marching up and down. And it almost looks like, to me, like campaigning is already in place. And then one may wonder, where is the NEC? If this is campaigning, where is the National Election Commission? Because election has not been officially announced, right? What do you make up of that? Because it's glaring.
Uh, yeah, it's a sensitive issue. Um, and like I think I told you the last time, enforcing the election law, especially when it comes to this activity. Because, for example, people will say we're having a welcome ceremony. People will say we are engaging. They get different title they're giving. They're not calling it campaign,
Hmm.
but in a nutshell, it's a campaign. You know that they are doing, and so the election commission has to really be able to see how best she can address what is campaign and what is not campaign. But like I said the last time, um, freedom of speech, freedom of speech is protected under the Constitution. So somebody will argue it is my freedom of speech to talk to people, to tell people about my political plans, to
Right?
tell people about what I want to do. So that would be a contested issue. So, but I know that it is affecting governance. Another thing I think that is being affected is that the country is having a shutdown, especially with the early campaign. The country is having a shutdown because the officials of government, from what I observe now,
Hmm.
they are not going to be in their offices. They're going to be following the president all around the place. The city mayor Legacy will be around with these speeches here and there, having all of these gatherings around here and there. So the function of the government is actually going to be impacted badly. So there will really be no real solid activity. So that's one major issue that I think is going to be problematic. Now, if you look at the IMF report, I read IMF report. They are projecting, all right? They are projecting. They wrote a very diplomatic report in a very good language. They are projecting a 5% growth
Mm-hmm.
in 20, I think 2023 and 2024 forward. But then in that same release, the IMF noted some of the risk factors, and one of them is the presidential election. So the economy is going to slow down badly because of these activities. Because officials of government will not be working. They'll be all over this place, all over Facebook, and all over the place, and trying to make these campaign statements in order to get to be able to win people over. Okay, and I think CDC is trying to use the crowd game, crowd politics, the crowd
Right.
politics. So that's what I see there. But I would suggest to anybody the crowd politics is not something to depend on. I think we all have seen it. If you have been in Liberia, we've seen the crowd politics. We've seen that many times. The crowd politics versus what you can have on the daily elections are two different issues. So, it's things that people need to watch for.
Wow. Yeah, the crowd politics. Sometimes I mean, people get carried away by that. The
Yeah,
numbers when you see them
yeah.
all like that, man. Wow, the momentum. But cause sometimes I mean, it tie in. It brings the momentum. Because some people, Africans as a whole, they are very charismatic. So they need something to move them, and people understand that. What to
No,
do, the music, the dance, the cheering up and stuff. So
no,
very much.
it does bring the momentum. That's for sure. It brings the momentum for campaign activities. The only thing about it is that you have to really effectively communicate to the people to make them to really get them. And then there are also issue of whether some of the people, how many persons in that crowd are eligible to vote. These are
Mhm.
questions. We don't know how many persons are eligible to vote. How many persons in that crowd between now and the coming of the election, how many of them are going to be, I'm not wishing anybody bad, but how many persons will be living? you know, by that time, some of the crowd you see there. I'm just looking at a different factor you need to be considering. How many person in that crowd is just a spectator? Because normally in Liberia, when there's a crowd, people come around. How many they are spectator? Is it 2 person? Is it 3? Is it 10? Is it 50? Those are factors. You have to know there are some people who are just spectators. They're not really okay. That I support this candidate, but I'm here. I see the people playing music. I need to dance. So those are the hating issue of a crowd that you have to be careful of when you see a crowd coming around you. So you have to, because if you look at Darius DeLong crowd when he launched his campaign, when he had his gathering at the headquarters
Yeah.
in Oro, and you look at what CDC produced, if we were to calculate by that crowd, really, how do you call him, Darius DeLong would not have won if we were coming to look at that crowd to just be the prediction, of the elections. But we saw what happened. We saw what happened.
Can you imagine another thing I'm looking at is this Bond County seat ahead of the 2023 election has already have about nine Senate race, nine aspirants,
Yes.
are trying to heat up for this Senate race. Just nine people already in line for just one seat Senate
Yes.
race for Bond
Yes.
County.
Yes.
And that tells me that people think that people have this mentality as in I go into government and I get this position and these benefits comes along with it for 9 years. I have ways of squandering money, all of that stuff. Why is even people who do not qualify or don't have the ability to run? Because as a senator, the way I look at it is, I like to compare that of the U.S. Senate with that of Liberia.
Mm-hmm.
Because as a senator, I tell people, you don't put poor people in government. If you elect a poor person in government, you are telling them to go and steal. That is a fact. Man, you put poor people in government, you are telling them go and steal. Someone who has not seen 5,000 US dollars, 10,000, 20,000. and you telling them come and see 50,000, come and handle 50,000, they will go crazy.
Yes.
And that is what's
Yes.
happening here. Everybody
Yes.
want to be a representative. Everyone wants to be in the Senate because they feel that is the only area where there is a consistent flow of some sort of income or benefits where they can, oversight committees and stuff where they can get money and stuff.
And that is why we have a dysfunctional legislature. That's why we don't have that's why we have a dead
That's
legislature.
why
Take for
it is dead because compare that with the U.S. Senate,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Come on,
Those was
example. Are you going to tell me you can bribe a man like Mitt Romney?
no.
He's a billionaire.
Yeah.
Senator Mitt Romney.
Yes.
He got the man is rotten rich. He got
Yeah.
stole all over the U.S.
Yes.
So it's just about integrity and the legacy that you leave behind for your people, putting these institutions in place. And there are
Yeah, but
Liberians that are rich. There are Liberians that are well-meaning, that are doing well. But these people, they go
yeah,
look for someone from the slums who is nowhere.
but the challenge is that the proportion of the the proportion of the voters to the people who have those have a very viable income, there are not many. That's the challenge you face. And like in the US, people want to vote people in their locality that look like them, that that understand their issues and whatever.
Right.
So the problem is the bigger part of the problem in Liberia is because of the massive poverty we have in Liberia and functional illiteracy we have in Liberia. It's a little difficult for the Liberian voters to critically analyze what should I look for in the candidate to be run for the Senate. For the basic thing that people want to see in a senator in Liberia is that he can build a stolid. When I go to house, he can when I went for the for my wedding, he paid for my wedding. When somebody died from me, he sent money there to do my this. When my brother was sick, he would. So that's what people see, and the reason why people see that is because their basic needs are not being met. So anybody that fall within the domain of at least just one day or 2 times meeting those basic needs, they assume that you have the capability to be a senator. That's how they're analyzing things.
Right.
Now there is a I always tell people when I used to teach a course in psychology back in Liberia, they have a chart. Almost everybody who did psychology, you have done this. They call it the Abraham Maslow pyramid. All right. Now, Abraham Maslow developed a pyramid, and that pyramid, it has 1 step, 2nd step, 3 step, 4th step. The first step, it talk about bodily needs, your different bodily needs that you need every day. Then when you get out bodily need, then it can bring some kind of feeling in you. Then you say, okay, I want to have another feeling. Now, most Liberians are at the bottom of that pyramid. That's the point. So the analysis you're giving here, the analysis you're giving here, in the U.S., most Americans are not at the bottom of that pyramid. Most Americans are at the top or at the middle of that pyramid. So when they are making decisions about who to elect as a representative, they're not going to be talking about somebody who's giving them bread to eat or somebody who's giving them toilet. They're not thinking about that. They're thinking about somebody who's going to protect their investment. They're thinking about somebody who's going to make sure their children get access to quality education. You see what I'm talking about? So you need to take a look at that particular pyramid, and you'll see what I'm talking about. It's called the Abraham Maslow hierarchy of needs. It's called. It's a very interesting, topic, in psychology.
I try to get that one.
In Liberia, I would tell you in Liberia about 80% of the people are at the bottom of that particular pyramid. So that's why the quality of the lawmakers that they really produce, they are not much. Because look at the session. Look at put a Nathan Tierney when he's on the floor. Look at Tierney.
Yeah, I had a lot of respect for Milton Tierney under the days of I would say Samuel Doe. Was it Samuel? Yeah, Samuel Doe Taylor. He was such an advocate, but he has gone the other way around as an educator as he is.
Yeah. Look at Tierney.
No to any legislation when it's in favor of CDC.
You think if Sino County have people who are not at the bottom of the pyramid, who were either at the middle or at the top of the pyramid. He will be there after this time. By the time they already finish procuring about 10, 20,000 signatures to get him out. You can't try that one in America and easily go. You see the difference there? So in Liberia, our voters, most of them are at the bottom of the pyramid. So their level of analysis, the critical thinking skills are not really there. So those who can meet their needs down there, they tend to want to make them to consider them to become what people do. Take for example, Senator Sir Joseph. Now, Sir Joseph is being hailed as a good lawmaker. Why is he being hailed? People believe he carries bosses. People believe he goes to the community, he shares some money with the market women. And in people's mind, he is a lawmaker. He's the best lawmaker to many of them.
But part of that dynamics that the people don't understand is he's doing it with their taxpayer money.
I agree.
You know, with the government money. That's the taxpayer. That is actually what they should be doing as lawmakers, right? Because that's the taxpayers' money, so the general public will benefit.
Yes.
But so then the other way around, they think that he's using his own money, doing good to re-elect himself.
Yes.
You know.
And if you ask 10 out of how they call it, 10 Liberian out of that 10, 8 people will say the man's a good lawmaker. But if you really look at what lawmakers should be doing and really doing what they should, he's not really a lawmaker. He's creating problems for the country. But they don't see it that way. They don't see it that way. They see that, oh yeah, they get a good lawmaker. He goes around, he bringing this up. No, if Sir Joseph wants to be a minister, a cabinet minister, go and be a cabinet minister. That's what he could be. But if Sir Joseph wants to be a lawmaker, let him be a lawmaker. You sure what I'm talking about? But people don't get it. And so those lawmakers who are not going around doing all of that, people tend to say, oh, you're not a good man. He didn't pay for the funeral for I told him to come buy me this one. He didn't do it. And I told him to do that. I wrote him letter several times. He's a bad lawmaker. Even though that guy is doing well at the legislature. Look at people like, I'm not like praising the law, but when you look at his activity on the floor, he's active. You can see every day. You can see his questioning. You can see how involved he is. You can see how he's always making sure that his constituency can see him, that he's working. But most of the other guys don't get time.
Folks, that's how we're going to wrap it up over here today at Talk TV Media Network. Again, it's been a fascinating show today. Tomorrow we'll be here at 2 p.m. bringing you the gospel show, discussing religion. Here tomorrow with Musu and the other co-host staff for Talk TV Media Network. Again, my colleague Joel, what's your final word, man? Before we take
my final word is Liberians should 2023 is coming. You have to think critically. You have to examine what your future should be. And I'm talking about future, your children, especially those of you who are older, you have your children now. And when you're voting now, it's not about you. I would tell people, if people don't get it, you voting now is not about you now, because you live in your future now. I would tell people, you're in your future. Some people in the 35-year-old, the 40-year-old, they think the young boy. I say young man are youth. You're not youth. You're not youth. And I wonder the problem in Liberia, people don't educate people. You're 40-year-old, you're not youth. 35, you're not youth again. And those are things I think Liberians need to understand. You're not youth. You are not a youth. You are already in your future. You are already in your future. So it's about your children now.
Yeah. Tell me about it. I'm gonna tell you this. Let me tell you this fun, right? So I came from when I first time came from Liberia to the US. I was in the choir here, and one day they say, all the youth, we need to talk to all the youth. And then I felt like, because I was in my early 30s and stuff, I'm a youth, and I saw all these 10, 15, 12, kids, 9 years old going. I'm saying, this are not the youth. This is... That was fun.
Yeah, so my brothers, you don't joke. You have to vote and think about the children. Because if the country is not moving forward, you're going to remain forever. It's a cycle. It's a vicious cycle.
It is. I suppose that's how we wrap up here.
Yeah.
Happy birthday to again. Happy birthday to the Unity Party candidate, former Vice President Joseph Boakai. We saw you had a huge dinner last night celebrating your anniversary, 50 years, I think. Congratulations to you for that, and to many of you who are celebrating your birthdays this month of August and also your anniversaries. A special one from us to you uh, as we wrap up on this show here today. And until we see you tomorrow, this is how we end the show. Sit by and watch this promo. Joel, I'll catch up with you.
Thank you.